I just want to say it is great being here with this evening in this wonderful, ancient and holy and mysterious town of Glastonbury. It's my first time. I think I am overdue at my age to visit here, but better late than never. And first thing I want to talk to you about is, first of all, to begin with a little apology to you all, sincerely. And it's this, because I'm going to try this evening to squeeze about 35 years of research into about, how long? An hour and a half. Thank you. I've only just found out how long I'll have. Okay. My students don't call me the nutty professor for nothing, and by the end of the presentation, you're all going to be in agreement, I'm sure. Okay. So we'll start a little bit at the beginning, just to give you some background on literature, just to find out if the laser's working here. My first work with another great, wonderful researcher called Roger Coghill, The Dark Side of the Brain, and where we started to introduce Kernian photography into this country for the first time, and my other invention, electrocrystal therapy. Kernian photography was not my invention. It is not my invention. It came from the Ukraine, as it is now, and it was by Semyon and Valentin Kernian. And I first got to know about them in a wonderful book called Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain by Ostrander and Schroeder. It was published by Abacus Books. I still believe it is available on the internet if you want to do any real background into how all this was sparked off. It's a book well worth reading. And that's above my own book here, by the way. Okay. Thank you. And another book that was a biography written of me and my work by Jonah Grant Solomon, Harry Oldfield's Invisible Universe. Out of print now, but still available on the internet, Amazons and all those other wonderful jungles where my book can be found. Okay. A few different articles in national newspapers and things over the years. But just to show you, I have been around a long time. And to prove it to you, I can tell you this story. 2006, I was in America, and they were giving me some kind of very nice, prestigious award, by the way, there. And I had got after my presentation, I had a young lady running after me down the corridor saying, Dr. Oldfield, can you hang up a minute? I just want to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind. And I did. And she said, my mother wants to know, are you the Harry Oldfield or his son? And of course, I was feeling very flattered, you know, this young lady, teenager, you know. And I said, well, actually, you know, I am the Harry Oldfield, and my son is named Anthony, and he's sort of like 20-odd years old. And then she stopped me, and my bubble burst, and she said, it's just that my mother said, by now, you are so old, you're probably dead. And it's the son I was going to see. So I just wanted to prove to her, to my mother, that you're still alive. So, absolutely true. And some of my early research actually began before that date, but 1972, the Kernian photography. Semyon and Valentin produced a beautiful method of making electrical pictures using corona discharge around living things and non-living things. And the wonderful thing about living things, ladies and gentlemen, is they gave off a wonderful, vibrant energy field. The inanimate object did not, unless it was like a coin or a cross that had been influenced with healing energy. And this was an artist, I call this the, for those old enough to remember the ad, the Ready Breck Man. Okay, the wonderful golden glow. The artist's impression is very good, but I have to tell you, in reality, and this evening you'll be seeing the reality of it, the artist's impression is a shadow of what the living energy field around a human being and all other living things are in reality. This was one of the first Kernian pictures in colour I took of my thumb. No members of the local constabulary here, I hope. Good, good. I'm still incognito. Right, okay. And this is actually the corona discharge and the energy. There's no lens or focal plane in a Kernian camera. there's a moisture screen above the film, and there's an electronic plate, and an electromagnetic field is passed around it. I'll be showing you the setup for those of you I know in Glastonbury who dabble. I'll show you how to do it. And it's in my books, of course. Thank you. And here's the apparatus. We have here, ladies and gentlemen, inside there, a modified Tesla coil, which is a pulsed high-frequency coil. Here we have a DC power source, so that there is no fluctuations from mains frequency or interference coming down the wiring. And here in these early days, my design of a function generator that had pulse ranges of very below and beyond human frequency ranges of ears, but these were electromagnetic field pulses with different waveforms. And we sent this pulsed high frequency, high voltage into something like a leaf, which was earthed, and this is the plate, this is reflective dielectric covering, and that reflected all the light back to the film, which was underneath the object to be photographed. Of course, when people put their fingers and hands on it, they didn't need to be earthed, unless they liked wires attached to them, of course, and then we obliged, of course. That goes down rather well in America, where certain electrocution methods are still used for capital punishment. But it's wasted here. I'll remember that, not to do it again. And here, right, I know in Glastonbury you're interested in the paranormal and ghosts and phantoms. Because when I was an ordinary reductionist thinking young man in my early days of learning about science, we didn't entertain such things. But over the years, my mind has changed. And it began with looking at a leaf. Okay, can you see this leaf here? It's a Canadian maple leaf, but it's not all there. If you look very carefully, ladies and gentlemen, from here to there is no physical leaf. It's a phantom energy picture. Okay? And Roger and I came up with a term, long before string theory in physics, for a subatomic energetic matrix on which these physical molecules for everything around people, the universe, trees, stones, you name it, on which these physical molecules are strung. Okay? And it's this organizing field. Okay, morphogenic field resonance as well has been brought forward by people, you know, various researchers and other things, of course, which I give due credit to. Thank you. Now, I wasn't satisfied with that partial phantom. What would happen if you took the whole leaf away? Well, I tried that and there was nothing left. So I left a central stem of vital force, okay, and ripped off all the leaves, which were there. That's the control, by the way, on the left, what it was like before I ripped off all the leaves. The leaves, the secret for a good phantom, 100%, is they have to be burned, okay? Just like in India, you know, the physical remnants of this space-time are burned, and therefore the energetic process is released and carries on instantly. The other thing to mention is the plant has to be, for this 100%, organically grown. If it's seeing chemical fertilization any time in its growing life period, you will only get partial phantoms, as we discovered in the 1970s, before organic farming was popular. Here, by the way, I started to grow organic cabbages. And as you, there's farmers and growers here, this part of the country, I hope. At least with the apples and cider, at least, I hope. And one of the scourges of the organic gardener is the cabbage white caterpillar. Okay? Now, the reason why I'm maligning it, ladies and gentlemen, so much is because of what I did a few seconds later. Please show the ghastly deed. A very painless injection of potassium cyanide, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a good point at this stage to announce that I also do children's parties and weddings, and Andy will be taking bookings after the presentation, or Martin down there. We'll see. And no, don't do this at home, ladies and gentlemen. I am an expert. And so after this injection, you can see that the life force was put out. It was just like putting a hose on a bonfire. light went out. There's fallout from the creature, but that creature, I assure you, is quite dead. And that's the before, just to remind you, and the after. And the reason why I put healthy there is because it had a last meal of my organic cabbages. And they were beautiful, just done with a knob of butter. They were gorgeous, you know. So he died very happy. I even put the butter on for him, you know. So, anyway, thank you. And here's some of that organic material, the organic cabbage. Okay, beautiful. It's not a galaxy in some thing taken from the Hubble telescopes, taken in the early 1970s with this discovery. But you can do terrible things to an organic piece of material too, especially if you put it in a pressure cooker or stew it for hours and hours. How many of you of my generation remember school dinners? And you'd walk through the school gate and you could smell what you were going to be having for lunch, because they'd been cooking from about 7 o'clock in the morning. Don't overcook your vegetables, ladies and gentlemen, because it takes out the life force. And this vitality, we also proved, is transferred to a human subject or an animal subject who eats the organic material. These aren't some supernova suns in a distant galaxy. They are organic oranges with the energy field around them in Kirlian. Now, I was approached when I was giving a presentation for Association for Health for the New Age by Marcus Corsens in the 1970s. Little did I know, in the audience, just like tonight, there could be researchers and things, there was a young researcher called Glenn Ryan. And he was from the local hospital. And he said to me, I'm doing research on cancer cells and on some cancer subjects. Instead of doing all this organic photography, would you like to take on a little research project with me on photographing people with cancer and also the cells growing in culture that I do? So without hesitation, you can imagine a biology teacher, as I was at that time, given the opportunity for this kind of frontline research, I went and visited him at his laboratory, and we didn't finish the first session of work till 4 o'clock in the morning. My ex-wife wondered where I was. In fact, she probably still wonders where I am, but that's another story. Well, coming back to the picture, ladies and gentlemen, here, in a healthy person, this is fingertips, right? We've got lovely, organized packets of energy. Okay, my laser's failing a little bit. It can happen at my time of life. I'll switch lasers in a moment. And here, though, the cancer subject, there's chaos. There's more energy, but it's not in organized packets. It's the life force gone rampant, ladies and gentlemen. Because, cancer, obviously is associated with a very vigorous form of life, but it's not organized. It's like a rebellion that's gone wrong. Okay, next one. But we weren't satisfied with just that. We were able to get hold of biopsy material from, this case, malignant breast tumor, and isolate from the center of the tumor. And the surgeons at the hospital also used to take what a safe surround in their excision of the cancer site. So there's normal cells as well. And Dr. Glenn Ryan checked under the microscope. This was normal tissue, exactly the same size, exactly the same thing. But the malignant tissue, right at the center of the tumor, was so effervescent, I could look at the top of it, and it was like looking down a miniature volcano as far as the energy was concerned of the cancer. When I looked down the tube of the normal cells, the normal tissue, they were quiet, doing the thing they all do, is just living their own normal life force and working away in the background. The cancer once was so exuberant, it escaped the thick rim of the test tube there, the energy. And this is a theory worked out, Glenn and myself, of how sometimes cancer can transmit from cell to cell or tissue to tissue. It's called, actually, an old theory, mitogenic radiation, if you ever want to look that up on the internet. Thank you. We also got whole tumors, ladies and gentlemen, and these are called TS sections, cross sections, okay? And this is a benign tumor, okay? And it had an outside layer that was alive, that grew, but the center part had necrotized. That means it had died off in the center, and it gave off an energy field that was quite vigorous. But one thing about the tumor, this tumor, if it broke off bits of it and circulated in the bloodstream, it wouldn't seed, it would not grow anymore anywhere else. If it carried on growing in someone's brain or in their liver or something, it could still kill you. Benign doesn't mean good in this case. But here with this malignancy, it was a very strong-going malignant carcinoma. And bits of this could break off, and you can see it's alive with energy all the way through. There's no black area or dead area. And some of these particular tumors and cells like very low, high CO2 contents, tension, and very low oxygen. And this is why in some natural cancer therapies they encourage the movement of oxygen and hyperoxygenated things through the body, especially the GI tract. These I would like to thank my workers in America who supplied me. Dr. Thelma Moss in particular did this study in the late 1970s with rats. Okay, and here there was only the rats were photographed, but here we had rats that had cancer in their bodies, not in their tails, but in their bodies, and here we had a healthy rat. And sometimes you could screen to see if any rats, you could mix them up, and you would always pick out the rats that had any cancer growing in their bodies, just as we saw with the human fingertips. So Glenn and I, Dr. Ryan and I, were thinking marvelous things that we wanted to make this into a kind of a mass screening thing, coding photography for cancer. This is going back in the 1970s. That particular project, I won't say by what and by who, was quashed because, and the excuse was the ethical committee, it was not drug-based, therefore it was unethical. The ethics are still the same today, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So I was pretty dismayed by this, and I'd left teaching by then, and I was working as much as I could in the hospital with the research work. And after, viewing my views, I was frog-marched out the door one day of this hospital by security. And probably the best thing they ever did to me, throwing out the hospital, because I'd just be a glorified technician there now if they kept me. And I went on to say, I think I can do something better. And the reason I will tell you that is it's very pretentious of me to say that at the time, because I'd watched the healing hands action on cancer cells of a wonderful healer. His name was Matthew Manning. Matthew Manning, back in the 1970s. And what he did was not kill the cancer cells growing in culture. There was no animals involved, just cells growing. He stopped them from dividing by inhibiting certain enzymes that were very important for the mitosis, the division of the cells. And he stopped it dead. Didn't kill the cancer cells, because he said to Glenn, he said, if I've got an energy that could kill cancer cells, someone or any healer could have an energy that could kill normal cells. And we can't do that. It's not our intent to do that. And I thought, my goodness, if we could put him in a machine, a healing machine, or a bottle, what wonders could we do for humanity? Anyway, Matthew declined. And so I went on, also with help from Glenn in the early days, to invent something from Curlian called ESM, which is the three-dimensional way of scanning the body and looking at the energy field invisibly with sound level meters and things, putting around a three-dimensional field. And the other method I did about 1978-79 was electrocrystal therapy, where I really did put healers in a bottle, or in this case, a tube. And they're called gemstones and crystals, ladies and gentlemen. And they are ancient healers that have been with us in our society since our hunter-gatherer days, perhaps even with the Neanderthals, because they wore certain things as well, as archaeology is now proving. And here, we don't just work on human beings, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'll just guide you around this picture. This is going to be a video of a Great Dane dog we met in America called Venus. And Venus had a problem with hips, and I looked at this in my scanner. This is different to the curling photography now. I am now able to see with video footage the living energy field around any living thing. and other things as well. And here, from her hip, there was an escaping energy, which we often associate with animals with hip dysplasia. And that was the energy block that was causing it. There it is, the energy block on her base chakra. Yes, animals have chakras as well, ladies and gentlemen. And she had a block there. So it was my job when I saw that, and Dr. Brian Daly was my witness to this, he was there, my American researcher, you'll be seeing more of him in a minute. And I asked the owners if I could put my crystals on her, and a few minutes later, the energy block and the leak, the block dispersed and the leak stopped. Now, this poor animal lounged around on the couch for hours at a time and got off the couch tentatively and hobbled across to the garden. It was a sad sight to see. But after this, she leapt off the couch, ladies and gentlemen, and made a very nice bounding way to the female owner, who burst into tears at the sight. So I was really pleased to be able to help Venus. And there are no placebo effects, ladies and gentlemen, for the critics out there on animals, okay? There are no placebo effects. That's the before, that's the after. Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, where I had that patient, yes. I would sing for you. Covent Garden wanted me tonight, and I told them I was busy, I was going to be here with you, but I could not upstage that beautiful choir, wonderful voices of harmony, to put you off with my voice. Okay, now here, speaking of voices, this young lady was losing her voice because of a very, very nasty salivary gland that was swelling up, very resistant to antibiotics, and this energy here from her throat chakra is tracking down here to her throat and stopping her from almost talking. And here, after a couple of electrocrystal sessions and healings, the throat chakra is cleared and the salivary gland went down, and she had given up the antibiotics long before that because they weren't working. Resistant bacteria. Now, this is PIP. This is the material, the invention that I made for observing wonderful patients like my dog, Venus, in America. And I went back to 1987 when I first was able to make my first PIP picture. I remember it was in my garden shed with an old computer called the Acorn Archimedes, which was the first 32-bit RISC computer. I still have it somewhere. I'm in love with that computer. It stopped working ages ago. No one will repair it. But anyway, here is PIP. Not P, but PIP. Thank you. No, it's not. It's just to remind you, forgetting my own presentation, just to remind you what the phantom leaf looked like, okay? Now, transfer that to a human being, okay? I believe, from what I've been able to observe and research over the years, and I'm being serious now, that man and woman are more than their physical parts. They are a mental, psychic creature, but also spiritual. And this is all integrated in us and balanced. And there are different layers and clothing of energy, okay? And although mind decides to function through brain, mind, we believe, can work independent of the physical brain. OBEs, people under anesthetics with near-death experiences, which I've had personally too, I'm telling you about that. Your mind can function independent of body and brain. And if you take away all the body, and you're never to return, then you have something classically there all the way through folklore of all human history. And these are phantasms, ghosts, spirits, etc. And here we had a volunteer of a young man who lost his arm in an automobile accident. But he said, sometimes, Harry, you know, I can feel my fingers moving. I know if an object goes through. My wife has blindfolded me and has tickled my invisible hand and fingers with a feather, and I've detected it. I said, when you're feeling like you want to be tickled again, come and see me. I said, I'll tickle you with something called PIP, polycontrast interference photography, and we'll see your invisible arm, I hope. I've done it with leaves, you know. And he looked at me most peculiarly. Have you indeed? We'll see. So he turned up a bit skeptical, and I said, can you feel your arm and hand now? He said, yes. Then I took the picture. There's the side view profile of his body, back and front. There's the stump, okay, the end of his physical arm. Here is the energy field right down to a missing thumb. Knuckles, and there's the shape of the hand, etc. And you can even see the tailoring of a wrist. Fantastic. We have repeated these experiments as well on other volunteers. Fingers and toes, and here we go. Yes, indeed. Now, the astonishing look here on this Qigong master, you heard the term eye-popping. It's because for the first time in his own body, we are showing him the chakras and meridian flows that he was taught as a young boy by his master in China, mainland China. And this is what he was looking at. Here are the classic meridian flows that flow down the arms. Okay? The chakras are here, throat chakra, heart chakra, and here is the solar plexus. And it was absolutely wonderful. I still, I believe, hold visiting professor of medicine status in mainland China still at a few Chinese hospitals because of, I went to China and trained these barefoot doctors. They do wear shoes, by the way. I was most disappointed in that. But what they do is they go back to their communities once they've been trained in medicine to work for their local communities, their local villages, their local townships. And I was privileged, really privileged, all these young enthusiastic faces to teach them how to use this diagnostic system in the field. Thank you. And another thing it can do here is also pick up not almost perfect fields like the Qigong master, but the diseased energy fields of people like with angina pectoris, where the heart chakra is completely blocked. And it's put a ring around the heart of negative energy, for example. I teach the system of diagnosis of this energy all over the world, by the way. So it's something that is repeatable with other researchers. And here we have a young lady in perfectly good health, lovely strong meridians there going down her forearm. But if somebody should get, like this case, this is not swine flu, but of influenza virus, all those meridians are disrupted. I did try ringing the NHS helpline when I got a sniffle the other day. All I got was crackling on the line. Okay. Yes, I know, that was a real swine, wasn't it? I do apologise. And making a real pig of myself here. And here we have the early stage, before I show you anything negative, I always like to lighten things a bit, of a benign breast tumour. And we saw this ring of energy. For the young men in the audience, I should explain that this is a brassiere strap, okay, to orientate you around the picture. And there is the top of the breast. Here we have an energy field. And I recognized this before. I'd seen it in the hospitals a few times. And I told the young lady that she should be tested out by seeing her practitioner and get a referral to hospital, maybe for a mammogram. And she went to a practitioner, GP, and he told her, sorry, I can't palpitate it. I cannot find or feel anything. You're a completely healthy young woman. And she went back, and we still saw it growing, okay, the energy field disturbance. And I told her to go back again. And she made such a nuisance, so she gave her the mammogram. And it was found just a few millimeters across a benign tumour growing. And it's one of the smallest they'd ever detected at this particular hospital. But we had detected it a good over 2 or 3 centimeters across of the disturbed energy field effect. Remember, anything physical in the body or this universe happens in energy first. Nothing can happen without energy transfer. Quantum physics, when you listen to my friend and colleague Dr. Manjir Samantha Lawton, tomorrow, I hope some of you will be at a lecture, Punk Science. Yes, I love it. I reviewed her book, and I love the title to that. And it definitely goes with my personality. And you will see how much energy affects us in our environment on a day-to-day level, including little mini black holes around us. coming and going. Okay. Now here we've got normal female energy. Okay, this is the solar plexus chakra. There's the splenic chakra there, there's the navel. And these are meridians going through the liver, gallbladder meridian, etc. But things can change, because 8 months later, there's a secondary energy presence there, which I hope you can all see around. Head, arm or leg, nice knee there, or elbow. Could have been a footballer because of all the kicking. It later proved to be wrong. It wasn't a male footballer. As I predicted, it was a female. And here we have part of the placenta or another appendage. As you can see, at this stage, the head wasn't in the engaged position for delivery, but a couple of weeks later, the head did engage and she was turned the right way for delivery. And shall I show you what was causing this energy field? We'd like to see that? Yes? Yes? Good? Okay. Okay, babe, show me. Oh, I mean, there we are. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay. I remember my good old friend Lama Rinpoche, and he had a beautiful energy field around him, and I was photographing him left, right, and centre. He said, enough of me, enough of me. Stop it, Harry. I said, well, can you think of anything more balanced I could photograph? He said, certainly. He said, it'll take the pressure off me, boy. He said, go and photograph a newborn baby, and you will see, as long as it hasn't been screamed and shouted at or got into bad habits already of this world, you will see beautiful, perfect chakras and energy flows in and around her. And he also warned me never to go out with that girl called Karma or her sister Dharma. Good advice. I never took it, but good advice. Thank you. And here, I want to introduce you to Dr. Brian Daly, my research colleague in the United States. Just to let you know that Brian comes from a very orthodox background. He won the position of the ward for US of A 3 times in a row in 3 serial years. Consecutive years, yes, indeed. So he came, I'm very proud to say, he came to my clinic, which was then in London. I'm now retired from clinical practice completely, because I want to be like places like this. You see, I'm having the sort of lazy good life now in my old age. Well, actually, now I've said that, she'll probably find more work for me. I've just seen her face. Coming on seriously here, the good doctor, after speaking to many of my patients at the time in London, developed pharyngitis. So I said, right, let's get the old crystals on you, young man, and see what we can do. And we actually photographed this happening. And he's using crystal tube here. And you can actually see the energy changing around his throat in real time and around his head as that chakra becomes more open and balanced and rid of the negative energy. And here's the energy you can see passing through there. White light, glows and things coming out of the end of the crystal tube. And we'll see now, before, there was no proper chakra to see, and there is, near enough, a perfect throat chakra. 1 minute, 10 seconds of crystal healing. There's no antibiotic that can work that fast, I assure you. Okay, and here we had worked with a technique used in India called, I'm sure many of you are aware of it, pranayama, okay, working with the energy of the breath and the prana that is in the breath, the life force. And it can be directed with inhalation, inhaling positive cosmic energy into the crystal with the breath, and then exhalation. And the frequency is completely changed to this higher vibration here, which is a shorter wavelength of light. Okay. And Dr. Brian Daly is also a Reiki master, something I don't know how he fits it all in, but here, we've got him here, building up the energy in his hand and projecting it as a ball, which should eventually this ball turn into a ball of white light. And here, we have him working on a patient in America with arthritis in the joints. in the legs especially, with something called Marcel Vogel crystals. Okay, I personally met and was befriended by Marcel Vogel in the early 1980s. Wonderful gentleman. Worked for IBM and invented something called the liquid crystal display. Anytime you see a liquid crystal display, it's because of Marcel Vogel. But later he left conventional science because he wanted to concentrate on healing, which he knew crystals had healing properties, which he made these crystals like laser beams. There's no physical laser beam in them, but they're like beams of energy that flash and actually enter the body's own energy field, I discovered. And this is showing the meridians of the healer and one of those beams coming out of the right-hand crystal, beaming in, and some energy is flowing into the left-hand crystal, going up. So it's a circuit that was being used. And this is the before and consequent after result of that healing with the Marcel Vogel quartz crystal system, and consequence relief of inflammation and pain. And there's other things that are inside crystals. I've only got time to show you, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the still pictures of one of these creatures, which I call the silicon entity, or the quartz crystal entity. And here it is, on top of a crystal. And it's quite shy, but when somebody uses the crystal for healing, as this lady did, that's the result, the expansion of this, I believe, is life form inside crystals. A lot of people believe that only life on this planet can exist in carbon-based forms. I believe that here, and even on other planets, life can exist in silicon-based life, because it has something called an interesting electrical property, quartz, silicon dioxide. It has a valency. Thank you. I think you guys even give refreshments. You know, I'm most impressed with you tech guys. Thank you. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much for all your help. How did they know my... lemon flavoured. How did they know my voice was going? Amazing. Of course, they wired me up with some wires, which I won't talk about earlier, ladies. Anyway, here we've got... That was for sound, by the way. And here we've got crystal energy fully formed. And these things can move around people, fly across rooms, and they are real. We have them on video. Thank you, Evie. And you can get white light, which I believe is produced by these creatures, fly out of enormous crystals like this. This was in the Monroe Institute in Blue Ridge Mountains, Virginia. Very famous institute. And these ladies and gentlemen had a friend in hospital, and they thought, I'd like to video this. And they were going to the healing crystal to beam healing energy to their friend in hospital recovering from an operation. And here they are, devoted, doing their chants and meditation, concentrating their healing force, and I'm there at a distance. Because if I got too near this crystal, it would crash the computer. So I kept my distance on a tripod, and I watched what they were doing, this devotion in their faces. And suddenly, there was a burst of energy at a certain time, and a few that came out, and after that, it was drawn back into the crystal. I couldn't see anything, and it was drawn back into the crystal. Maybe we could actually see that again, because it is so spectacular. Okay, here they are, and they're getting ready to synchronize their healing pulse, I think they called it. You healers out there, I know you're out there somewhere, know all about these things. I'm just a novice. I'm just a novice observer. I'm just in awe of what can be done. The crystal is acting as an amplifier for their healing force. And the white light, which was received and perceived by the person needing healing post-op, and 24 hours later, he walked out of there after a severe spinal nerve operation on his back. It was the fastest recovery that they'd ever seen. Watch for the white pulse. It happens, well, it happens at the speed of light. Completely envelops everything. And then you can see it come back into the crystal. There, drawn back in. You saw it as we saw it happen. Thank you, Evie. For the thank you for switching off your mobile phones this evening, ladies and gentlemen. You probably switched them off a little bit more when you see what's happened to this young man who was complaining of one-sided migraine-type headaches. Constantly, there, a young man with his phone almost like surgically cleaved to his face. And here is producing, this is the normal energy from the brain, but here, the auditory centers here, right side, is producing this mucky, brown, treacly stuff. And just to show you, it was affecting here, the back of the brain as well, where he was getting a lot of symptoms, including his eyesight sometimes getting blurred. And that is the normal side of the brain, where the telephone wasn't. So we can pick up the effects of almost any negative or positive force on the human energy field as and when it happens in real time. Thank you. This is a frightening picture, really, I have to tell you. Look at those almost demonic eyes of a crack cocaine addict. And those of you with discerning vision for pattern recognition will already see that there's half a face there with an eye and another figure, very sinister looking figure here, and smaller shapes around. She was the only one there against the backdrop. She was not there. Her parents were outside when I took that picture. No one could have stood there next to her. And I said, you know, what? She said, well, I hear voices. They tell me to do antisocial things. They've told me to steal and murder my parents. And I won't go into it, but we tried to help her with the energy field input from the crystals. Thank you, Evie. Now here is the same girl, but this, I often associate crack cocaine where the brow chakra was completely open, the crown chakra was split in half, with also excessive kundalini stimulation. A lot of these young people can become hypersexual and not discerning. And here, at the back of the hips here, these are her slacks and these are the bottom of her legs, things. We got this circle of negative kundalini energy, which was a negative vortex, and attaching themselves to this energy, which is really, can be used for food, with other creatures that don't live quite in our realms, shall we say, and that's a conservative observation, sucking in on these energy forces. Now, of course, no one before, except clairvoyance, mystics of vision, perhaps for 1,000 years ago here in Glastonbury, and today, this tradition has been kept alive for this mystical observation of people, things, and sacred sites, which I will be going on to. Oh, this is the beautiful energy of my friend Rinpoche, and the only thing that beats it, he said, would be a newborn baby, which you've already seen. But that's all the rainbow colours around such a wonderful person. He never wanted to sustain negative thoughts internally or have them externally focused on any part of him or his environment.